Hi, we're working on grade 3, module 3, or multiplication and division. Today we're tackling multiples of 10 using the associative property input page. Yesterday we worked on how to show multiplying by 10. It probably felt easy for a lot of you, which is great, but it also got us ready for some harder multiplication. Let's jump in. We can use what we know about multiplying by 10 and the blank to multiply by multiples of 10, and the associative property. If you don't know how to spell it, it's at the top of the page. Okay? We can use what we know about multiplying by 10 and the associative property to multiply by multiples of 10. 30, 40, 50, those are multiples of 10. Let's look at the next sentence. When you use place value discs, first multiply the ones, then exchange the ones for tens. So the top has some equations, and we're going to look at how we work along right with it. So you'll see we start out 2 times 40. We want to multiply 2 times 40. Using the associative property, we break 40 into 4 times 10. So now we're multiplying 2 times 4 times 10. And then we move our parentheses. So instead of grouping the 4 and the 10 together, we're going to group the 2 and the 4 together. Now let's look at the picture, because I think the picture is much more clear. I start out with my 2, my first factor. I have 2 ones right here. I multiply them by 4 first. Remember, this is based on our last equation, that we're multiplying the 2 and the 4 first. So here's our first step, and I end up with 8 ones. So my first step, 2 times 4 equals 8. Now I multiply that by 10, and so I exchange my ones for tens, and I end up with 8 tens, or 80. So the answer to every equation on the top is 80. All I'm doing is rearranging the numbers so that they're easier for me to use. That'll be fixed on your sheet. That'll just say 10. Because everybody makes mistakes. Okay, so that's how you do it with place value discs. You rearrange the numbers so that you're working with the ones first, and then you exchange for tens. Let's see what it looks like on the place value chart. When you use the place value chart, first multiply the ones, then move the dots from the ones to the tens to multiply by 10. Again, I have my equations at the top. I'm going to save these for later. It's showing how I'm separating ones from tens. So 3 times 30, I use the associative property to say 30 is the same as 3 times 10. I have my parentheses around here to show this was 30. I did have 3 groups of 30, but that number was too big. I didn't want to work with it. So I move the parentheses, which I can do because we know when we multiply, the order doesn't matter. So I move them to show I'm going to do 3 times 3 first. I think that's easier. And then when I know what this is, then I'll multiply by 10. Okay, so I start out with 3 big dots in the ones place. So 3 times 3, or 3 rows of 3. I can draw in my extra rows. So I started out with 3. I needed 3 rows of 3 to show 3 times 3. 1, 2, 3 of 3. I end up with 9 ones, and I'm going to move all 9 ones over to the tens. And I end up with 9 tens, which equals 90. So the answer to all of my multiplication equations up here is 90. So this is being really flexible with numbers. This is taking a big problem and breaking it down into smaller pieces so that it's easier to work with. And this is where we need that great mathematical flexibility and understanding. All right, it's time to tackle your output page. I'll see you next time.